Hey guys, yeah, welcome back to the channel. So today's tutorial is basically on making a Victorian corset. So in today's tutorial we're going to be drafting a Victorian corset. Alright, so if you are a subscriber, a returning subscriber, welcome back. And then if this is the first time you're watching one of my tutorials, you're highly welcome again. Please kindly subscribe to the channel. Alright, so basically I went ahead to draw a straight line across this paper, which will serve as my shoulder line. So I'll just basically go and mark out those parts where I'm going to be needing for this. So I'm going to be needing the chest line, also the bust point, like you can see, then the under bust, which is around 14 inches. Then I will also mark my waistline, which will be on 16. So this can be different for yours. Just go ahead and locate the part of that person's body you are working for. Then the length of this top will be 22 inches. So this also varies as well. So I'm not going to be adding allowance to this because I'm still going to be adding allowance on the fabric when I'm working on the fabric. So these are those the basic lines I'm going to be drawing out. So that's the shoulder line, then the chest line, which is on 8 inches, then the bust point, the under bust on 14, the waist on 16, then the length of this top on 22. Now I'll just basically use a ruler to connect these lines together. So if you've actually followed to this stage, the next thing to do is to use your ruler, then connect this point you've made on the pattern paper with a straight line. So guys, once you are done connecting this, you are just going to go ahead and label this point. So for the chest line, I got the chest line by dividing my round bust circumference by 6, and I added 1.5 inch allowance to this. So that gave me 8 inches. Also, you can just go up from your bust point by about 2 inches. So you still get the same accurate measurement for this. So we'll just go ahead and label this. So that's my chest line, and this is my bust point. Here I have the under bust of this person I'm working with, then the waist, then there I have the top length. So now that we have this, now we're just going to go ahead now and draft our basic bodies. So if you've seen our videos on how to draft a basic body, this should be easier for you. Alright, so now we're going to start from the shoulder line. So I'm going to be using the basic neck measurement for this as well. So 3 has the width of this, and also 3 has the depth of this. So this is basically 3 by 3. Then I'm going to be using this curve to connect the measurements together. So I have a basic round neck measurement here. Also, if you don't have a curve, go ahead and just make a curve from these 2 points together like this. So you have something like this when you're done. Now, having done this, I'm going to go ahead now and take my shoulder measurement. So I'm working with a shoulder of 14 inches. I'll be dividing that by 2, then I will have 7. Now I'm going to make a point on that part as well. Then I'll be sloping this shoulder by 1 inch. And that is basically me marking the same 7 inches I had on my shoulder on the chest line. So now, like I said, we're going to be sloping this by 1 inch. So I've gone ahead to mark that 1 inch. Then I'll connect the next slope to the neck wideness. So just go ahead to connect this slantly with a ruler. So this is what I had after I was done with that. I really hope this is clear enough for us to see. Alright, now so from the shoulder slope, go ahead and connect a straight line down to your chest line. So at this stage we have something like this. I actually hope this is clear enough for us. So now, since it is the front bodies we're working with, we're going to be giving it a curve. So I'm going to go ahead to find the midpoint of this from the slope. So I had 7 inches. Now go ahead and divide that by 2, which is going to give me about 3.5. So I'll make a point there, then on the 3.5 I'll extend this inward by 0.5 inches. So I'm going to be making a slant from my shoulder to the first point I made, like this. Then I will use my curve to arrange a nice curve, but before I do that, I will take the bust measurement of that person on this line here, which is the chest line. So I'm working with a bust of 38 inches. I'm going to be dividing that by 4, then I'll have 9.5. So that is just basically me marking that 9.5 there. So that is where my armhole curve will end. So just go ahead and use your armhole curve or your French curve to just arrange that from the other slant you have right there. So arrange it to where you have your bust measurement. Exactly, so you have something like this when you are done with that. So now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking note of our bust pan, that is the bust pan, or you can also refer to it as the nipple to nipple. So the nipple to nipple I'm working with is 8 inches. I've gone ahead to divide it by 2, so I have 4 inches. So I'll just basically mark 4 inches on the bust point and then on the top length. So I'll go ahead and connect these 4 inches on the bust point and on the top length together with a ruler. So those are the points I actually indicated with my hands. So I'll just connect this straight ahead. Right, so after we're done with this, now we're going to be working on a dart for this. So keep in mind that a Victorian corset is mostly about the waist snatching. So we're going to be working more on the waist and the underbust for this. Alright, so on each side of the waist, I'm going to be going in by half an inch of both sides. So you can also do 0.75 for this as well. So just go in by half an inch or by 0.75 depending on the measurement you're working with. Then on the upper part, on the lower part of this, I'm going to be going up by 1 inch. So I'm not going to allow the dart to end on the top length, so it's going to be moving up from 1 inch. Now having gotten this, I'm going to connect these points together as shown. So guys, please pay attention to how I'm going to be connecting these darts together. So what I actually did is I went up on the top length by 1 inch so that the darts will not get to the end of the top. So this is basically me connecting from the bust point to the waist for the first one, and the other side as well. I'll go ahead to connect this like this. So having done this, I'll move to the lower part as well and connect it like this as well. I really hope this is clear enough, guys. So just go ahead and arrange this points together. So this is what I had after I was done. So if you're following, you should probably have something like this now. Right, guys? So after we're done with this now, we're going to be working on tightening the bust part of this. So I'm going to divide what I had left on my shoulder into 2. So that was 4 inches. I'm dividing it by 2. I'm going to mark the midpoint of that, which is around 2 inches. So having done that, I'll just go ahead and connect this point to my bust point. So I'm going to have it slanted in a way. So just go ahead and use your ruler to arrange in straight line to that part. So you have something like this. Keep in mind that it is half of what I had left on my shoulder. I went ahead to connect to my bust point. So this is what it looks like after I was done with that. Now we're going to be extending this now because we're going to be giving this a sweetheart neck. So we're going to be extending this up by 1.5 inch. So this actually depends again on how you want yours to be. Right, guys, so before I do that, I want to go ahead to tighten my waist part again. So I'm just basically putting in all my measurements in order to confirm all what I have been doing so far. So I'm just going to take all measurements I'm going to be using for this. So there I went ahead to put my waist measurement, then I took note of what I used for my dart, then I replaced it. Then for the top length, I just used my hip measurement without an allowance, and I'm going to connect it together from what I had on my chest line. So I'm just basically inputting my measurement for this. So just go ahead and use your ruler to arrange a nice curve for that part. So after you are done connecting these points together, you have something like this. So this is just like the basic bodies we're going to be working on with this. Now I'm going to use my marker to make these lines more visible for us to see. So this is just me connecting it to make it clearer. So this is what it looks like after I was done with that. Now, like I was saying earlier, we're going to be extending this because of the sweetheart neck we're going to be using by 1.5. So you can actually use 2 inches, but I think that is the highest you should go in order for you to have a fitted top. So I'm going to be using 1.5 inch for mine. So I'll just go ahead and extend this by 1.5 inches. So just go ahead and measure 1.5 inches above from your chest line. Now, after locating that point, then you use a ruler to connect straight like I'm doing. So we are doing this because we're going to be working with a sweetheart neck. Then we want to give this some curve, then it will not be too explosive after we are done with this. So now, on that point which I connected from my shoulder, I'm going to be tightening this by 1/2 inch on both sides. So this is our over bust tightening. So just go ahead and measure 1/2 inch on both sides of this line, then connect it back to your bust point. So I'm going to be using the curvy parts of my ruler to arrange this because I don't want it to be too straight or pointy. So I'm just basically going to use this curvy part to make my curve into the bust point. Then I'll turn it the other way again and arrange another curve for this. So this is what I had after I was done with this. So go ahead and do the same thing with yours. So I'm just basically going to be using my marker to make this line more visible for us to see. Right, so this is what it looks like after I was done with that as well. Now we're going to be arranging a curve now, which will be our sweetheart neckline. From that point I pointed to down to our chest line. So we're going to be using the curvy part now of our ruler to arrange this nice curve. So this is for the sweetheart neck illusion we are working on. So just go ahead and give this part a curve like this. Now, after we are done with this is what we had. Also, I'm going to be using the marker to make this more visible as well. So we'll just go ahead and place back the curve again and then use the marker pen to trace this. So this is what it looks like after I was done. Now for the other side as well, I'm going to go ahead to use this ruler to arrange another nice curve and then blend it into my armhole. So we have something like this. Now I'm going to stop on this point now and then use a free curve to finish this all up. So this is what I had. Now I'm also going to go ahead and eradicate all sharp edges on this. Right, so now that we are done with this, I'm going to go ahead now to check on my bust, my under bust measurement. So I'm working with an under bust of 34. After dividing it, I had 1 inch remaining. So I divided my under bust by 4. Then I had 1 inch remaining on that part. So I'm going to be tightening this with that extra 1 inch. So for the other part closer to the edge of the paper, I'm going to be giving that part 0.25. So the part I'm working on now, I'm giving 0.25 to that part. Then for the other part, I'm going to be giving the remaining 0.75 to this part. So this is basically me sharing that 1 inch for this part. So I shared 0.25 for that part, then 0.75 for this part, which is a more curvy part. So I'll use the curvy part of my roller again to blend this curve out. So this is just for me to snatch that part as well. Now doing this now, the shape of the cup will actually be out for us to see clearly. So this is what I had. Then for the other part again, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this. Right, also I'll use the pen to make this more visible for us to see. So it is always better to work with both a pencil in order for you to be able to erase any error you have. So just go ahead and do the same thing for yours, guys. Now this is what I had. So what I'm just going to do is I'll just basically arrange this part down to the leg of the dart I already had before. So this is just how it's going to look like. So I'm going to place my ruler like this and then connect this back to the 1 inch I went up by the other time. So this is what I was actually talking about. So you can see how it looks like now. So I'm just blending it into the dart I had before. So if the dart is actually crossing on the one you had before, just don't mind that. Just go ahead and make that straight line into the leg of the dart you had previously. So guys, this is what I had. As you can see, I have both the side front and the center front piece ready. So this is what it looks like after I was done. Now I'm going to further snatch this part now. So for the whole of this, I'm going to be removing about 2 inches from my measurements. So I'm working with a waist of 30 inches, but I'm going to be making it 28 because I'm going to be snatching this waist. So on that part, I want to further divide this piece, the center piece, into two. So you can also leave it this way or go ahead and split it up. So I'm going to be splitting that part. You can decide to split the center front or the side front, but for mine, I'm going to be splitting on that part. So what I'm just basically doing is on my waistline, I'm going to be dividing what I have there by 2. Then I'll just connect a straight line straight ahead to divide what I have there into 2 from the top to the bottom of this. So like I said, I'm going to be snatching this by about 2 inches. So I'm going to be using one of it for the front and one of this for the back as well. So I'm going to be taking 0.25 on each side of this. So on my waistline, as you can see, I'm going to be measuring 0.25. So don't mind where my tape is actually pointing to. That was me just trying to show you what I had left on my under bust. So on the waistline, like I was saying, I'll go ahead and measure 0.25 from each side of it. So that means my measurement is already 1 inches short. So I have about 0.5 inches short now. So as well, I'm going to be extending that part by 1 inch again, because I don't want the dart to get to the bottom part of the top as well. So now I'll just use this again to connect another dart leg for this. So from the bottom part of this, I'll go connect it to the 0.5 I marked on the waist, like this. Again, I'll connect it like this for the other part. Keep in mind that this 0.25 I had on the two sides will give me 0.5, which will be half inches removed from my waist measurement. So I'm going to also connect this to the top again, like this. Then on the other side again, I'll arrange another curve for this part to complete my dart. So this is what I had after I was done with that dart for that side. So you can further go ahead to also divide your side front, but for mine I'm just going to go ahead and leave it, because the more pieces you have, the more it is difficult for you to join these pieces back. So also I'm going to go ahead now to go up by 1 inch on this part to give my top a nice curve. So this actually depends on you. If you want your top to be straight on the bottom part, you can go ahead and just leave this like that. But for mine, I'm going to be giving this a curve on this part. So you can go up by 1 inch depending on how curvy you want that part to be. Then I'll use my curve to blend this into the length of this top like this. So go ahead and do the same thing for yours as well. Now, having done this, now we'll go ahead to cut out this pattern as our front piece is ready. So I'll just go ahead and label this part as my center front 1. This is the center front 2 as well. Then this is the side front. And I'm going to label this 3. So I have 3 pieces together for the front piece. Now while I'm cutting it, I'm going to have about 5 to 4 pieces after I'm done cutting. So I'm just going to basically cut on the dart parts. So be careful while you are cutting. You can see I'm wholly cutting out on my dart part. So because this can actually ruin the whole pattern. So just carefully cut out on your dart parts. So this is what I had after I was done. So if you're going to be using a yoke for this as well, you can as well use what you have on the upper part as the yoke, because it will blend directly into what you are working with. So this is just me basically showing you what the patterns look like. So while cutting the center front one, you are going to be cutting that unfold while the side will not be open, like the part will be blocked. Now for the back pattern, I'm going ahead to mark out my basic bodies as well. So I'm going to be starting this from around 8 inches, which is my chest line. Then I've gone ahead also to mark my bust point, so which is 8 divided by 4. So I had 8 divided by 2 rather, so I have 4 inches. So that is just basically what I have on that paper, as you can see. So I have my chest line, the bust pan, then the waist, and then the length of this top. So on this part, on my chest line, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for me to create a dart for this. Then I'm going to be going up on the length as well by 1 inch. Right, so after I'm done with this now, on the waistline I'm going to be taking ½ inch dart on both sides. Now I'm going to be connecting these dart legs together. So from the 1 inch I came down by, I'm going to connect this like this. So whatever you see me doing, just go ahead and do the same thing. So for the other side as well, I'm going to connect this like this. Right, then I'm going to also connect this to the bottom part of this as well. So just give this a nice curve like this. Then connect the other part as well. Right, so this is what my back dart looks like. So what I'm just basically going to be doing now is to be tightening other parts. But before I do that now, I'm going to be taking in all my measurements on this part as well. So this is just me basically putting my round bust measurements, which I have on 9.5. Then my waist measurement, which is 30 divided by 4, so I had 7.5. Then I'll be replacing what I used for my dart as well. Then on the top length, I'm going to be using my hip measurement for this part. So the hip measurement divided by 4 as well. Then I'll go ahead and connect this point together. So guys, this is what I had after I was done inputting all my measurements for this. Now we're going to be tightening the back part of this, the bust part of this. So I'm just going to go use 0.25 on both sides of this. So just like we tighten the bust part of this, we're going to be tightening for this back as well. So I'll go ahead and blend this into my dart leg again, as you can see. So I just use this to blend into the dart leg I already created. So we just go ahead and do the same for yours. So this is what I had. That was just for me to be able to tighten the upper part of this. So now I'm also going to be snatching this part, but for this part I'm not going to be working on the side, so I'm going to be working on this part. So I've divided what I have here by 2. So like I said, you can decide on which part you want to split into 2, or you can as well leave it the way it is. So I'm going to be slanting this part into 2. So I went ahead to divide what I have there by 2. Then I am going to be connecting it with a straight line. So like I said, I'm going to be removing 1 inch from my total measurement. So for this part now, I'll go ahead again and take 0.25 on both sides, like I did for the front pattern. So I'm going to take 0.25, then I'm going to connect a dart as well for this. So I'll just blend this in straight to this part. Then for the other side again, I'll do the same thing, blend this in. Then on the lower part of this, I'm going to also go up by 1 inch as well. Then connect this as the leg of my dart. So just go ahead and connect just like this as well. Right guys, so this is what I had. Now if you're going to be using a zipper for this top, you can go ahead now to add the zipper allowance to the other part of this. So I'm also going to be giving this part a nice curve as well. So from my chest line, I'm just going to arrange a nice curve. So as you can see the way I'm placing this, so go ahead and do the same thing if you want to give that part a curve. And if it's actually fine, you can go ahead and have a straight back line as well. So this is what I'm just going to be giving this a little curve. Now like I said, if you're going to be using a zipper, on that part you're going to be adding 1.5 inch allowance for your zipper. But for mine, I'm not going to be using a zipper, so I'm going to be subtracting 1.5 inch from what I have here. So if it is too close to your dart, you can go ahead and use about 1 inch. But since it's not close to my dart, so I'm going to just be removing 1.5 inch. Now this part I drew a straight line on, I'm going to be cutting it out because I'm not going to be using this in this pattern. So I'm going to be making use of a loop for this, so, or an eyelet. So that's, I'm just removing that 1.5 inch I had there. Then for the lower part of this, I went up by 1 just like I did for the front. Then I will give this top a nice cover as well. So this is what I had now. Now keep in mind that that part I'm going to be cutting it out because it's not going to be needed for this. Then I'm going to be cutting the part I made a zigzag on us as well out. Thus that part. So now I'll go ahead and cut this out. So guys, be careful while you are cutting. So I've gone ahead to cut out only my dart parts, as you can see. So be careful not to cut on your actual pattern. So this is what I had. Like I said, I've gone ahead to remove 1 inch on the side of this because I'm going to be using an eyelet for it. So I have this labeled as well with 1, 2, 3. Then I also use an arrow to indicate how these patterns are going to be joined together, because mixing this all up can actually give you a big headache. So just go ahead and align. So you can see I also use a marker pen to number on my front pattern. So guys, at this point, if you have any question, please go ahead and leave your questions on the comment section, as I'll be replying all comments, and then I'll see any way I can be of help. Right, so I'm going to be using this fabric now in our next tutorial to show us how to put these pieces together. So if you find this video helpful, please subscribe to this channel and please turn on your notification bell so that you'll be notified when I post a new video. Thank you for watching.